Before Nigeria had a flag. Before it had a national anthem. Before it even existed as a country. There was already a bank. But this bank was not built for Nigerians. It was built to control them. In the late 19th century, the land we now call Nigeria had no formal banking system. Trade existed long before Europeans arrived. Local merchants, kings, and trading families financed commerce using trust, cash, and indigenous credit systems. Money moved through markets, not vaults. Then the British arrived in full force. They came with ships, traders, and administrators, but they also came with a problem. Carrying large sums of money across oceans was dangerous. So they brought an institution that would quietly become one of the most powerful tools of colonial rule. In 1894, a British shipping tycoon named Sir Alfred Lewis Jones founded the Bank of British West Africa. Its first branch opened in Lagos. This moment marked the beginning of modern banking in Nigeria. But it was never meant to serve the local population. The bank's purpose was simple: to protect British trade interests. It financed European companies, processed export payments, and ensured that profits from palm oil, cocoa, rubber, and groundnuts flowed safely from West Africa to London. Nigerians could open accounts, yes. But loans? Almost impossible. Senior positions? Completely closed. Capital was controlled by Europeans, while Nigerians remained suppliers of labor and raw materials. The bank became more than a financial institution, it became an economic gatekeeper. It decided who got credit, which businesses survived, and who stayed poor. Indigenous traders were slowly pushed aside as colonial firms gained access to funding that locals could never obtain. This was banking as power. By the 1930s and 1940s, Nigerian elites began to notice the imbalance. Journalists, nationalists, and future politicians started asking uncomfortable questions. Why was African wealth being exported? Why were foreign banks dominating local economies? And why were Nigerians locked out of their own financial system? The pressure grew as independence approached. Quietly, the bank began to change its identity. In 1957, the name British was removed. It became the Bank of West Africa. In 1969, it was renamed Standard Bank of Nigeria. And finally, in 1979, it became First Bank of Nigeria Limited. These were not just cosmetic changes. They reflected a gradual shift in ownership, leadership, and political control. After independence in 1960, Nigerians entered senior roles. The government acquired stakes. Branches expanded into cities and rural areas once ignored by colonial trade routes. First Bank began financing Nigerian businesses, infrastructure, and public projects. But the transition was not smooth. The bank survived military coups, a brutal civil war, oil booms and crashes, banking collapses, and economic reforms that wiped out many competitors. Institutions came and went. First Bank endured. Its greatest strength became survival. Today, First Bank of Nigeria stands as the oldest bank in the country. Over 130 years old. Deeply woven into Nigeria's economic history. A symbol of continuity in a nation that has experienced constant change. But its origins remain a reminder. Nigeria's First Bank was not born out of national vision. It was born out of colonial necessity. And only through decades of struggle did Nigerians begin to reclaim it. This is not just the story of a bank. It is the story of how power is built quietly. How control hides behind institutions. And how history leaves clues, if you know where to look.
If this story moved you, subscribe to Untold History Vault. For more stories the world forgot to tell. Because some histories are taught, and others must be uncovered.